Well, good evening and welcome to the Conservation Board meeting of May 3rd, 2022. I'm Jim Almstead, and with us tonight we have Jeff Bartocci, Roseanne Cohen, Daniel Moore, Pat Schickler, Paul Sugnett. We have Debbie Drawe with us tonight as our town board liaison, and we have Bert Gorton. I guess I left out, sorry.
That's all right.
And then Catherine Dubrec, who's our junior planner for the town. And tonight we're going to welcome a guest speaker, and I'd promised that we'd give her the first item on our agenda. So I'm going to ask that Pat Schickler introduce her, because Pat made the arrangements for this speaker.
Okay, well, I'd like to introduce Megan Meyer. She's a longtime resident of Penfield, grew up attending Penfield schools, and went off to college and then lived in Rochester for a number of years before she returned back to Penfield, and that was 30 years ago. So she's a master gardener and one of the original founding members of Color Penfield Green. And she currently co-leads Color Your Community Green's Healthy Yards Monroe County campaign. And in 2021, she received quite an achievement of getting her Climate Stewards certification through Cornell University. So I'm looking forward to all she has to tell us about the initiatives that she's working on.
Thank you so much, Pat. And thank you to the Town Conservation Board for inviting me tonight. And I'm going to be talking not only about Healthy Yards Monroe County, but our Color Penfield Green, which is a wonderful group, and Healthy Yards Monroe County is actually a campaign of that organization. So to start with, Healthy Yards Monroe County is a resident-led group that is concerned about the health of our environment. We are currently in the beginning stages of what may play out to be a major climate crisis if we don't take action. We are also seeing an alarming loss of biodiversity. Both are interrelated and impact our resiliency with the challenges we will be facing in the future. As I said before, we are a campaign of Color Your Communities Green, and our parent organization is Climate Solutions Accelerator of the Finger Lakes. So Healthy Yards Monroe County mission statement is to ensure a healthy habitat for all species by restoring biodiversity and ecological health to our communities. Our goals are to educate and encourage our residents, town and county officials to adopt sustainable landscape practices that support and restore biodiversity, restore soil health, and maintain clean water. Sorry about that. And we also encourage our county and towns to preserve open space that will contribute to habitat connectivity. So Color Penfield Green. Color Penfield Green is an organization of residents in our town of Penfield who are, again, concerned about our environment, and our goals are to inform our fellow residents about all the incredible ways that our community is going green with a focus on climate. We educate people as to how they can reduce their carbon footprint. We organize local volunteers to participate in high-impact campaigns, and we support and empower Penfield residents to become community leaders in addressing climate change. If you go to our website, you will learn more about some of our campaigns, which I have up right here. Obviously, we supported our Town of Penfield's Community Choice Aggregation project, Healthy Yards Monroe County. We also have on our website a lot of our town green initiatives that have been implemented over the years. we collaborate with our Penfield schools' sustainability efforts. We address environmental justice, not only in our own towns, but in the city of Rochester. We have some pages on food and food waste, what you can do for sustainable homes, and of course, electric vehicles and charging stations. So I encourage you to, if you have not checked out our website, you can go to colorpenfieldgreen.org and find out more about us. So the overall parent organization of our Color Your Communities Green and all these other wonderful campaigns is an organization called Climate Solutions Accelerator. And it is a not-for-profit organization that, again, educates individuals, businesses, and municipalities on the problems we face with climate change and offer boots-on-the-ground solutions that we can take to reduce our levels of heat trapping and greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. So you all, I'm sure, are aware of New York State's ambitious and comprehensive climate action plan. It is called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And as I said before, it is one of the most ambitious and comprehensive climate and clean energy legislation in our country. And these goals, these climate and energy goals, set the stage for a sweeping set of measures to reduce our state's carbon footprint and improve the resiliency of our communities across New York State. And it also provides opportunities for residents and communities alike to partner with businesses, schools, and government to create a green economy and to build a more sustainable future. So I'm going to just quickly go through some of these goals. Many of them are all about how we generate power by integrating more renewables into our electric grid, which our town of Penfield has done. They are empowering New York residents and businesses to heat and cool their homes and workplaces without using fossil fuels. And the third major goal is to transition how we commute from point A to point B with zero emission transportation. So this particular plan has a draft scoping plan that was put out the beginning of January for residents to look over and to make comments on. And we have, there were several that have happened already, and we have 2 more. So we inform and educate our residents to step up and to participate in some of these virtual meetings to offer their support and ideas for what they would like to see the state to do. So I just share that with you in case any of you are interested. But one of the things that Healthy Yards Monroe County is addressing that this climate action plan is kind of lacking is biodiversity. And biodiversity is the unique variety of life on our planet that underpins our cultural, economic, and social well-being. Unfortunately, human-induced changes to ecosystems and the extinction of species have been more rapid in the past 50 years than at any other time in human history. And I'm sure as a conservation committee, you understand this. So apart from any moral reasons for humans to care about other species on Earth, there are practical ones. At the most basic level, people rely on nature for their survival. The diversity of all the plants and all the animals actually make our planet function. The Worldwide Fund for Nature reported in 2014 that global biodiversity declined by 52% from 1970 to 2010. Almost half of land mammals have lost more than 80% of their range in the last century. And it is also estimated that 83% of wild mammals have already been lost due to human activities. In April of 2021, the UN Environmental Program released a report called Making Peace with Nature, stressing the fundamental need to address our multiple environmental crises together, not separately. This is the critical message. Attention is often focused, and rightly so, on climate change, but biodiversity crisis is equally urgent and inextricably linked to the climate itself. Climate change drives biodiversity loss, and loss of biodiversity, such as the destruction of forests, contributes to climate change. The two are related in another way as well. Biodiversity is the planet's mechanism for mitigating the effects of climate change. Healthy habitats store excess carbon, reduce the impacts of flooding and storms, and minimize the effects of pollution. So there's a tendency to see climate change as something that affects us, and biodiversity as something that affects life forms other than us. We are all, though, interconnected, and when one part of a system fails, it affects the whole. So this is what Healthy Yards is all about. And one of our gurus is Professor Doug Tallamy from the University of Delaware, who has written 2 blockbuster books. The first one called Bringing Nature Home, which was published back in 2000, probably 2009, and then Nature's Best Hope that just came out within the last couple of years. And I'm just gonna give you a small little clip of Tallamy in action and what his major statement and goal is.
The ability for ecosystems to function in our managed landscapes in our suburban-urban matrix is very poor because we have landscaped primarily for looks. We've treated plants as if they were decorations and forgotten all about their ecological roles. So we've sacrificed the ability of all of the land that we've used for our suburban neighborhoods to make ecosystem services that not only support other creatures, but they support us as well. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing the research we're doing. We're trying to generate enough data to convince people that these landscapes can be highly productive. If you produce plants that insects cannot reproduce on and develop on, you are creating a really depauperate ecosystem. What this homeowner has done is put the plants back into the suburban landscape. Most of these plants are indigenous. They are native to this area, which means they are important components of the food webs that originally were in this area. So you have lots of wildlife around, and these plants are filtering our water. They are sequestering carbon. They're supporting food webs. They are supporting the pollinators that keep those plants around. They're producing oxygen. All of the ecosystem services that plants provide are now happening right in this yard because it's not one vast lawn. When I think of best plants, I think of what those plants are doing, and in almost every instance, oaks come out on top. In our region of the country, the mid-Atlantic states, oaks support 534 species of caterpillars. And remember, the birds are eating those caterpillars, so that's 534 species of bird food coming from the oak in your front yard. There's no other tree that does it better. Just for comparison's sake, if you had a ginkgo in your yard, which is from Asia, it supports 1 species of caterpillar. So there's a huge difference in the productivity of these particular trees. I care about this because we need these other living things to run the ecosystems that we depend on as humans. So we can think of this as, we're not making a sacrifice here. We are doing what's absolutely necessary to keep the ecosystems running that support us. So it's for humans.
So I just want to share with you some of the things that are happening here in Monroe County, around Healthy Yards, Monroe County. I don't know whether you've heard, but there is a program called No Mow May. I don't know how our town codes will like that one, but it's a nationwide movement through Bee City USA and the Xerces Society. And XXI just did an article on one of our local leaders, that Cheryl Frank, who is president of Color Bright and Green, about how she is encouraging the Brighton residents to not mow their lawns and to allow, obviously it has to be a lawn that is not a monoculture of grass. So, you know, if you have a lawn like mine that has violets and all kinds of different flowering forbs in there, that is what our pollinators need. So I just wanted to share that one with you. And you can probably go online to Connections, XXI's Connections, and it was published May 2nd. Monroe County Parks. Actually, this photo is the meadow at Ganondagan, our state park down in Victor, New York. And Ganondagan reclaimed this particular meadow, and the state planted all kinds of native plants, not only grasses, but also pollinator plants. But I just want to share with you what Monroe County Parks will be doing this year. You will be seeing signs in most of the Monroe County parks that says meadow restoration in progress. And they will be not mowing a lot of the areas within these parks. They will be mowing walkways through, but they are doing it to have biodiversity, have the food sources that our native pollinators need. And we're seeing that in more and more towns. And also the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. We also are, again, about preserving land and space, and they announced quite a few 3.375 million in Conservation Partnership Program grants. And we had several in our area that received that, notably the Finger Lakes Land Trust, Genesee Land Trust, and the Nature Conservancy, that are all about preserving habitat connectivity in our particular area. This piece, the Genesee Land Trust, works not only with residents, but also with municipalities to kind of look over the land that you have within the town and earmark those areas that you might want to preserve in the future. And the town of Webster has used them to earmark and then connect with residents for future preservation. So it's you might want to have Genesee Land Trust in to give a presentation on that as this committee. And then, of course, the Nature Conservancy has protected one of our parks here, our 1,000-acre swamp, and they have been working through across New York State as well as the whole nation. Our Monroe County Master Gardeners just pulled together a campaign. It is called Native Pollinator Friendly Gardens, and they have a whole website full of information on much of what Doug Tallamy is talking about, the importance of you know, putting some of these native plants into our own residential areas, because we have lost more habitat than can really support our native pollinators. So we at Healthy Yards Monroe County have collaborated with the Monroe County Master Gardeners. The Seneca Park Zoo also has a program called the Butterfly Beltway, which again is all about native plants. And back in 2017, the Seneca Park Zoo and the New York State Department of Transportation received an Environmental Excellence Award from the DEC for their collaborative efforts to restore pollinator habitats along Interstate 390. And this project included altering mowing practices along a 6-mile stretch of the interstate between Mount Morris and Saguenay, which resulted in 93 acres of naturally regenerating wildflowers for butterflies, bees, and other pollinators to complete their life cycle free from mowing disruptions. We'd love to see that happening here in our own town with some of our parks that are kind of meadows. Our group, Healthy Yards Monroe County, some of our volunteers lead workshops, lectures, and workshops. And this year we did several through our Penfield library. One was the art of native seed sowing, where we made our own little greenhouses, and you just put those seeds out there. They need some cold stratification to germinate, and those should be germinating at this particular point in time. We did a lot of programs called Reconnecting Nature by creating a healthy yard through not only our Penfield Library, but we went to Brighton and Henrietta Libraries. We had Jim Engel from White Oak Nursery into the Penfield Library, who is, Jim runs a native plant nursery in Canandaigua, New York. And we also do educational blogs and articles to educate our residents. We lobby our towns, and this one was a letter to our town board regarding replacing trees when they take them down. That was last year. And as I said before, we collaborate with our school environmental clubs on their sustainability issues. We table at eco fairs and farmers markets to connect with our residents. And this one in particular was the Brighton Eco Fair in September, an educational tabling event. So we envision native ground covers for shade instead of mulch. We envision sunny native pollinator gardens in front yards. We also envision this as the new normal rather than the exception. We envision more native plants available from our local nurseries. We envision less of these, and unfortunately, I saw those coming in to the town hall, and more of these. And why do we do this work? We do this for clean air and water. We do this for the health of our pollinators and birds. We do this work to preserve the biodiversity we need for a livable future for our children and grandchildren. And I'm going to leave you with this one quote that really touches on the basic premise from which we work at Healthy Yards Monroe County. The ultimate test of a moral society is the kind of world it leaves its children. It's a central question that we need to ask ourselves at this moment in time. We are here in this exact time and place where our earth needs us to take action. We can sit complacently and say it is too big a job, or we can choose to take small actions that collectively add up to improve the quality of life for future generations to come. And I thank you.
We thank you, Megan, for being our very first guest speaker. I want you to know that I'm doing my bit for biodiversity. I have a lot of dandelions in my yard.
Fantastic, so do I.
Does anyone have any questions for Megan?
So, so the act or the process of making the pollinator plants, you talked about winter activities as far as little greenhouses or whatnot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you buy those pollinator plants at your local nursery?
Okay, pollinator, a lot of these plants, many of our keystone species are actually trees. And Doug talked about the oak being the most kind of the keystone plant that is that sports more pollinators than the others. But I must tell you that the red maple is right there, I think in second place, and our black cherries. We also have keystone plants, as perennials. So what we advocate, if you're going to be planting, like a pollinator garden, is to find some of those native plants that will come back every year. And then we also have different landscape practices. One of them is called Leave the Leaves. The worst thing you can do is bag up those leaves and throw them into your garbage can or have them trucked away to the landfill, because all that organic matter creates methane, which is 20 some odd times worse than carbon. So what the Xerces Society is advocating is that if you have gardens, you rake those leaves, some of them, into the gardens. You mulch some of those leaves with your mulching lawnmower, and you can compost them maybe in a back area that that's a little bit more wild in your yard. And we have all of this information on our website if you want to learn more.
I think Paul was also asking if we can get some of the native pollinator perennial plants at our local nurseries, like it's butterfly bush, would that be? The ones that attract the butterflies.
Unfortunately, a lot of our nurseries are not carrying the straight natives, but we do have 2 native plant nurseries not too far. One is called Amanda's Garden, which is it's about an hour away in Dansville, but Amanda comes to the market days, Flower City market days.
The public market.
At the public market. And also the Genesee Land Trust is having all of these native plant nurseries come in to their native plant sale, which is always at the Brighton Town Hall, and that is in May. And I can certainly connect you up with the dates on that.
Okay,
as
thank
well.
you.
And Amanda from Amanda's Garden also delivers. So you don't have to drive down, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous trip down there, and it's really kind of a neat little nursery. I'm sorry, did that answer your question?
That did. Thank you. Because I'm certainly behind as far as doing it for this year.
Yeah.
So if I just rush out and get some somewhere, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Any other questions?
Well, you've given me a good excuse to not get out and pull out the milkweed that
That's
I'm
right.
like, it's
That's
like, oh,
right.
good, I'll leave,
And we're hoping to encourage our town not to, once they get that disc golf in, not to mow down all of the milkweed and the asters, which are the last plants that those pollinators need to survive over the winter, which happened last year. So I think some of our members are going to be talking to our Parks Committee about that. And they can learn from the town of Webster because they are ecologically taking care of the Great Meadow at Gosnell Big Woods. And the Genesee Land Trust has advised them on how to mow and when to mow so that you don't bother those spring nesting ground birds, and also those native pollinators have those plants up for their food to sustain them over the winter.
Well, again, Megan, we thank you very much, and you're welcome to stay for the balance of our meeting if you'd like. If you'd rather not, that's understandable as
Okay.
well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, one thought I had about the pesticide sign, I did learn, speaking with Supervisor Cinti, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, this is the only area we use the pesticides because of the ball field, so it should not be signs in any of the other parks with the little yellow pesticide signs.
Did you know about the act where schools are not allowed to spray pesticides on their property, which was, I think it's the Child Playing Fields Act that was, I think it was put into law in 2011 because it harms children who are developing. So for you to be spraying ball fields is not a great idea.
Sorry.
When
Thought that would help.
When our
Sharing.
when our schools are not spraying because of that, and we have a state law related to that. So we all need to kind of get ourselves educated on all of these things.
Thanks for that.
Thanks.
Okay. So do we have communications this month?
The only thing I had to share, which I did not have a chance to pull up, but I think, Jim, you had forwarded it to everyone, was the DEC invasive species newsletter that they share out, I think, every month, or maybe it's every few weeks. They had another fun mapping activity for anybody can sign up and go out and pick an area, and you can mark where you've seen the spotted lanternfly, and then that helps DEC with tracking invasives and hopefully removing invasives from our state and from our local area too.
I'm going to ask our friends in Penfield TV if they can turn up Catherine's mic,
Oh.
because my hearing is not what everybody else's may be.
So I just shared the email you had shared
Yeah.
with everyone.
Yeah, I sent that, yeah.
Yep, so I got that too,
Okay.
even before you sent it. And I
Yeah.
just encourage everyone to sign up for those newsletters from DEC on invasive species. This letter had a fun mapping activity where you could sign up for a free account, pick an area nearby, and then mark where you've seen spotted lanternfly. And that helps DEC and other organizations with removing the invasive species from our state and from our area, just like locally.
Yeah, I'm going to encourage all of our viewers, if you are interested in following what the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has to offer, they have many, many news publications. And you can sign up for as many or as few of those as you wish. So if you just simply use your search engine to go to NYS DEC News, you will see that the DEC will give you the opportunity to sign up for any topics of your interest, and they will flood you with information. And most recently, what we got, as Catherine was mentioning, is information on the spotted lanternfly, which was an invasive species that I was particularly interested in seeing us have a guest speaker on. But that same guest speaker that became available to us put on a number of presentations in the area, and there is now an awful lot of information online on that particular pest, so we may rethink whether we actually need a live guest speaker or just need to raise everyone's awareness by, I wonder, Catherine, if we might be able to include somehow in our minutes something like an active link that people who read our minutes could go to this particular article on the spotted lanternfly, because it is an invasive species that that I've seen and just was repelled by, and I think Bert's had a similar experience. They are just nasty, nasty bugs, and they do a lot of harm, not only to trees, but grapes. And so it's an invasive species that we'd very much like to keep out of our area. By the way, I couldn't help but chuckle as we were talking about global warming here a few minutes ago, and there was a cartoon in the Wall Street Journal. The solution to global warming may be ice cream. And I would endorse that very much.
Okie dokie.
The other thing I was struck by here recently, we talk about the need to reduce our carbon footprint. I was at Home Depot this past week. I was amazed at how many electric lawn tools are now available, including riding mowers.
Yeah.
And the walk-behind mowers, all electric, are reasonably priced. So I'm not expecting my lawnmower to die anytime soon, but if it does, I think I'll go electric.
Our genie might sabotage them.
So,
Lock your garage.
anyway, I guess on our agenda here, we have review of ongoing projects. So Catherine, remembering that my ears are very,
Yes.
very
I'll speak loud.
not so sensitive anymore.
If I could just, I don't think we've approved the minutes yet.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
I was just
that we
gonna,
just skipped right by that.
yeah, I was just gonna mention that too.
Thank you.
That's all right.
And the minutes look great to me. How about you, Paul?
I think they look great. I move to approve, sure.
Second.
All right, hearing no objection or correction, thank you for the minutes.
You're welcome.
Yeah, all right. So go ahead, Catherine, with your review of ongoing projects.
There are the same projects as April that are ongoing. The Burger King that was on 250 going towards Parrington, so going south, that's open now. So you might have seen people there. That's open now. And then there's 2 new applications before the planning board. One of them is for the McDonald's that is on Empire by Walmart. So in that Baytown Plaza, the McDonald's is just, they're coming before the planning board in May to, they have plans to extend their drive-through out. So similar to other new McDonald's, now they have 2 drive-throughs, and like you kind of merge at the window. The McDonald's on Empire has plans to do that as well. So that's in a super developed area. So I don't think Conservation Board would be interested, but just keeping everybody in the loop. And then we do have one application before the board for June. The June deadline just passed on Friday, this past Friday, for a restaurant on 250 where Perkins used to be and where the Cobblestone restaurant used to be. Now it's just a pad. And that would be proposed to be Chick-fil-A. So that just came in Friday. So we're working on review, and that'll be before the planning board in June. So there's ways to go for that. Other than that, ongoing. Same subdivisions are being built, same other projects that have been ongoing for a little bit.
Okay.
That's all I got.
And Bert, do you have updates from the EMC?
Gosh, I didn't realize I'm on the agenda, that's right. Well, you know, what's interesting, the EMC heard Megan's presentation along with a couple of others. One very interesting, I think I've spoke of it once before, about kind of the whole garbage composting effort going on in the city, and so we got an overview of that program. So really nothing. The last meeting we had was just kind of the capital project process for the county, and you know, somewhat esoterically interesting detail, but you know, I don't think anything necessarily critical for the team here. But I think what's important and what's interesting to me, and I actually made some comments at the March meeting about this, because we've had a number of presentations at EMC this year similar to what Megan was doing. We've had the county talk about the recycling program. We've had a number of the green initiatives that are going on and things. And we started a bit of a discussion amongst that, because again, those are all other representatives from the conservation boards. And a number of us spoke to where, as you start listening to this information, and a lot of things out there, that initiatives that can be undertaken, and they're trying, organizations like Megan are trying to push that rope up the hill a little bit, and things is, you know, kind of what is the conservation board's role within the municipality? And, you know, I stop and think, I think, Jim, you predate me by a couple of years, and then Paul and I, I've been on this a long, long time. And the thing that I found interesting that a number of other representatives also spoke to was, you know, I'll go back to our early days, and our role was reviewing developments with an eye on conservation. You know, EPODs, just a gut sense of, because we're interested in it, of what did we see this development doing to, you know, the ecology. But really no formal training to any of it, you know, outside of some of the regulations that we've picked up around EPODs and some of the requirements. But, you know, other than that, we're just concerned, interested citizens with an eye to kind of help at least flavor development. But as a lot of these initiatives are starting to come on, it's, you know, is there a changing role for conservation boards? And a little bit of it I've been thinking and had meant to communicate and just forgot or dropped off the radar, but you know, I don't know as to, is there within some town charter, some providence, kind of how is our role defined within the context of Penfield town government? You know, is there, the conservation board shall consist of 5 to 11 members, and it shall do da-da-da-da-da. You know, I don't know whether something like that exists for a board like that or not, but, you know, I think some of the challenges that people like Megan and a lot of other interested citizen groups are starting to throw at us is you need to be pushing the towns to do more. And we've even had some internal struggle with that as to what is our role, and, you know, do we push? So, you know, I think the big conclusion, if you will, out of the general discussions that happened at EMC was, you know, we all kind of need to keep talking about this. We talked about it within the context of EMC and fellow committee members, but also to have these kinds of conversations within our individual groups. Because that EMC is just, it's all members of conservation board, you know, one member from each of the conservation boards, a couple of at-large members, you know, Noel was for quite a while, and a couple of the county folks. So I think that's something, and we've struggled with as a board over these last few years. I remember back to even Doug Fox kind of pushing a little bit, hey, you got a $700 budget, kind of, what are you doing? What are some projects you want to do? Well, we all just stumbled around because we had no frame of reference to go, oh, I want to do that, unless you had some burning personal interest. Get rid of gas lawnmowers or get rid of the lantern moth. That no content. Well, now they're starting to get an awful lot of information out there that can form the basis for maybe some things we want to do to the future, and help to collaborate with the town and push the town a little bit in one direction or another. But so I just think that's something that we as a committee will need to kind of keep talking about. Thinking about, we've a couple of things that we've done, embarking upon the Tree USA, the whole thing that we did around the giveaway, right? Tree giveaways 5 years ago was how many trees do we buy, how many tables do we set up, get a bunch of us there, hand somebody a tree. Well, they're differing contexts now. So, and I think the big thing I wanted to the message across is that all of our fellow boards are kind of grappling with the same thing and seeing their role. A couple of them, quite frankly, with things they've said, or maybe a little ahead of us and things, but we're all as boards grappling with what's our role. And the general consensus was, maybe the day of our looking at a set of site plans, with how you're managing stormwater and some of that, we've got to emerge. You start thinking a little bit of what Megan was talking about now. Think about how would we apply that when we're now reviewing a project to where there's going to be some open space. Well, we've always, it's been, do you have 35% open space, green space? Not what are you going to do with that green space? And so is there a role there? Quite frankly, for myself, I said, I'm not educated enough to be able to start, what pollinating species are out there. I couldn't even list much more than about 2 of them.
But we can start, and so I very much agree with you on that. And the time, and we've talked about this before, even for becoming, tree guidelines or tree, the tree city, is that the time is right, because as you said, the laws that passed, Daniel, you brought that up about, a person's right to a healthy environment. And there are laws that I listened in on a conference over the next 10 to 20 years, pushing electrical, because, and what needs to be done to help towns to achieve this, because at some point it will be law, and your older models and vehicles and whatever that are running on gas are not going to be illegal, but when you go to buy something new, you're not going to be able to. So what do we need as a municipality to get ourselves set up for that? And that's what, there's a whole conference at the state that is working to, what do they need to do? Do they have to pass other laws to say thou shalt, or help to provide funding? But I see it as a twofold process: education for ourselves, because all I know, we're always eager to learn new things and get in knowledge for ourselves, and then making it available, because there is such a conglomeration, just all the different websites that she mentioned to look at this and look at that. It's just, can be mind-boggling. Where do I start? So, maybe there's some ways of us deciphering this information down to put it into a manageable piece for suggestions for people to stick their toe in.
Yeah, so you said a couple of real key things there, Bert, and you echoed it. But we talked about this last year. I remember looking at our site and trying to see what are we supposed to be doing. And it's really weak. And there's no mission statement. So we should think about that. Maybe it's a side workshop in which we look at the site and say, what would we like to put there? What would we be able to put there? Do we create something? But it's also the education piece. I fully believe that we should be doing what we did today, more of it. We may not know what the right pollinators are, but bringing the people and just get it out there to the folks.
I agree.
So
And I think along those lines, Paul, what really kind of has resonated with me now that I've been to, 4 EMC meetings, and I'll tell you what, they've all been earthy. I mean, there's been a lot of very good information, and I was just telling Jim I've got some notes I need to pull together to think about. You know, summer's probably going to be a little bit slower, but you know, for some opportunities for the fall. But what really resonated with me was we've had some of this conversation, as I said earlier, we've had some of this conversation before about what can we do, what should we do, and really didn't have much to go on to kind of come up. Well, now it's like, yeah, we don't need to sit here and amongst ourselves kind of try to think up you know, an electrical vehicle presentation or this, because there's what Megan is doing and what others are doing, and I've got, you know, some lists of that kind of that have developed over these last few meetings with EMC. There's a lot out there that can do. I mean, just within our own township, thinking about how some of these things are interrelated. You know, we've got Bob Knauer, and you've got a group there that's doing stuff that we don't, I know for myself personally, I don't really have much of a tap on.
Right.
Maybe we can have more interaction within the boards where we
got to start thinking,
overlap,
holistically, how are some of these emerging pieces, because they're really, I mean, the traction of the last year or two has accelerated beyond anything in the last decade. So maybe it's time to start, okay, how do some of these pieces, from the town perspective, how are they all coming together? You got the Conservation Board doing something, I forget what that Bob's group is, but you've got this going on, you've got that. You know, one other thing, I was just talking with Jim before the meeting, and I did talk briefly with Mark about it last Saturday and things, but 2 meetings ago, there was a wonderful presentation on stormwater permitting and the requirements that are in place, and that you have to, all municipalities have a permit, they have to have a permit. And so they started the details of that, but out of I think it's like 8 total elements, requirements of a permit, 4 of those are public participation initiatives. You know, the first 4 are the normal technical, you know, managing stormwater, just the way Kodak had to do it against Monitor and this, that, and the other thing. But and there's an annual report that has to be submitted every year around those initiatives. Now, I've never heard of it, never seen it, never dreamed that it was there. So I think it would be valuable for this committee for Mark to come in and give us that update to go, yeah, here's the requirements. There's part of there's a county-wide stormwater coalition that Mark sits in. He's Penfield's representative. And, you know, you have to have permits. Here's how the things link. And then there's these projects and reporting, right? That's part of taking the roster on set last Saturday morning, right? Was that's going to be a piece that will go into that. But I mean, I just sat there, you know, again, I had 20 years of stormwater permitting at Kodak as a reference point, kind of going, wow, this really kind of struck me that this town is under this requirement. Yeah, the Stormwater Coalition. So, you know, I think that's another piece that is important. I think education for us in our role of looking at a site plan. You know, the nuts and bolts of it are obviously on the planning department, but for our to be educated to some of those watch outs. So, yeah, I think the key message, Paul, that I'm getting over these last 4 months is that there's a wealth of stuff out there that we can do, and I think you're going to see the continuing emergence of the Conservation Board's roles across this municipality, across this county, in pushing this type of stuff.
Catherine, can you, because Bert brought this up, is what is, or maybe Debbie, you already know, what is in the town rules or laws that refer to Conservation Board is, as you said, how many members, and they shall, you know, because maybe there's some ability within that to create ourselves and
So-
some of our role.
I think, can I,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I think and what we've talked about this a little bit, Jim, Marie, and myself have talked a little bit about, about this group, because there's a wealth of knowledge and leadership in this group, in the Conservation Board. And we want to see you guys, if you guys would like to, grab onto some things, look at your mission, what you'd like to do here for the town, with the town. The Energy and Environmental Committees, which you were referencing to. Now, you're kind of a little paralleled in some things. I mean, I think a lot of what Megan was saying goes, kind of heads and tails. Talked about you got the groups being kind of on a similar plane,
At least know what each other's doing.
Exactly. One of the things we have taken a look at with Catherine as well is, a member of the planning board is taking a look at it, redoing a checklist for every site plan, and that's something I think you guys have wanted, something, what your piece is, what your role is on looking at certain projects, the checkpoints on there. What does the Conservation Board need to see? This, and this,
Right.
whether it's an EPOD, whatever the site in this plans, so that everybody has a uniform plan when they're seeing a plan. So we all know that it's all, the Ts are all.
When to nose and when not to.
Right, and no one knows, everybody knows what's going on. I think that's part, but the input, but as far as looking at the mission plan, I don't think that there is a conservation board that we have to have in this town. But as far as, to my knowledge, Catherine, I don't know that we have to have a certain number of people on it and there's a certain requirements.
It's pretty vague.
Yeah,
So
I
it
think,
definitely could use some attention, and I think if
It's vague.
So I think
you
as
do
opposed to
need-
doing it right here, I think that's a separate workshop.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So look at what's there, what we want to have there, and then that has to go through.
The town board. One of the things that's great is about with the, and I'm going to cite Catherine, having this new blood and new leadership, ability here. Catherine really, pulled off, working to bring the tree event here to the town. I mean, she really went, to encourage all the Conservation Board to get back involved, and I think that's,
And the grant.
the grant, that's a big piece of it. I mean, kudos, to bring that to us. And I think that's with new life, new blood, new ideas, bringing it to help to pull some stuff out, to pull it together maybe, and look at the mission plan of this, what you guys would like to see us, where you want to see us continue to go in Penfield. But I think it's a very valuable committee. I don't think it's one that we take for granted at all. I know, I personally, and that's something that we as the board, the town board, have talked about this. So we'll continue to, work with you, and if you guys give us input what you'd like to see, we'll for sure look into that and take it all for the
yeah.
betterment.
Now, Debbie, you're absolutely correct that we got involved in more discussion about the possibility of helping the town board with an ordinance relating to our possible goal of becoming a tree city. And with respect to what does the town specify for the Conservation Board, we currently say that we're a 9-member board, but we are operating presently with 7 members. And I think based on the kind of development activity that we see in the town, 7 seems fine for now. In the old days, when we had a lot of development activity, we really needed 9 because we had multiple sites to go and visit. And our goal, as Bert said very clearly, back in those days was to provide information to the decision-making boards, the planning board, the town board, occasionally the zoning board, with respect to new developments that affected what was largely open space. And so as Bert and Paul have been encouraging us to look at other things that conservation boards should be doing in this modern age, we're going to look to the town board to give us some direction as to what you would like to see from us. And would you like to see us help with respect to a tree ordinance?
Okay.
And if so, how far are we going to go with the tree ordinance? Tree ordinances can get to be very onerous. Princeton, New Jersey is the ultimate example where they actually tell people who have private properties what they can do with their trees. And I doubt very much that we're at a point where we want to go in that direction. But we've certainly looked at what other towns are doing, including Princeton, just to see what does a tree ordinance look like. But I think we're going to need, as you said, we're going to need some more discussion with the town board
And
to
that's something
tell
we'll-
us
the town board
what kind
will
of help would you
have a
like
discussion on that.
from us in that regard.
Okay.
But I would just like this not to become what comes first, the chicken or the egg, because if you say, well, let's get some input from the town board, what would you like from us? And then the town board, on the other hand, well, what would you like to do?
So I should clarify, so as far as the tree piece, we'll talk about with the town board. I know we spoke, Jim,
Okay.
we spoke already about that the town board was going to discuss that.
That's
and
separate.
get back to,
Okay.
absolutely. But as far as, I guess my point was, if there's something specific that you guys have a vested interest in, that you want to make sure that it's on, it's on your.
Maybe like education for ourselves.
Again, I think let's sit down
Yeah,
and
separate.
have that conversation. We can put up on a board just thoughts. And
There you go.
This is the type of, and then we propose it to them and they
That's-
Yes,
say
that's where
yay and nay and.
adjust.
Or have you thought about this? If I could just quick, Megan had a presentation. Is that something that can be shared?
I can follow up with her tomorrow and
I'm just curious because she had some stuff up there and I kept grabbing my phone.
Oh, her
and then she'd
PowerPoint,
move
right.
it.
Yeah, the
And I was
PowerPoint.
trying to understand some of the sites.
Oh, I'm sure she would.
I will do that tomorrow.
Well, maybe this is to table this now and to move forward for the rest of the agenda. We could say, let's make
I think it's separate.
a separate session. I mean,
It could be.
I would like to
It
participate
could be
in that.
before or after one of these meetings. Just doesn't need. I think in the public. It doesn't need to be in the public forum.
Right.
I do have a quick question that relates to it. How is the plan, the comprehensive plan finished, or is it in the process of? Because part of what she was talking about is having like the towns and communities and the growing role of the Conservation Board, as we're talking about now, is that I have the idea of creating a biodiversity and climate adaptation and resiliency plan, and that would be something, because we have the tree policy or guidelines, and so we have already like expressed of what things that we want to see conservation-wise already as a board, and so including this plan would also bring the ideas of what these public citizen groups are doing and put them into the perspective of like, how are we going to adapt and adapt to climate and biodiversity like effects. And so creating some sort of plan that has to be renewed along with the comprehensive plan specifically for conservation, I think would be something we should consider moving forward.
I get you, Daniel. I think maybe we'd have to figure out what our new role is, and maybe suggesting to do this, an additional plan would
Yeah,
come out of that possibly.
the comp plan's in the final stages, but I think like the open space plan is separate from the comp plan. Maybe that's something that could be separate and maybe an additional plan, like the open space or like the bicycles plan or things like that that are separate plans. But I think that's a good idea to have a conversation about it.
I want to lay something out here for you, and it's going to come as a shock perhaps to most of you and most of our viewers, but here I sit as the chair of the Conservation Board. With respect to becoming a tree city, as laudable a goal as that sounds, the thing that I might object to personally is that it gives some outside organization some say in what the town of Penfield decides to do. We have, I think, a town here that has a very good balance of forestation. I have a feeling that when the concept of tree cities really began to take hold, it was largely cities that if they didn't have a goal of becoming a tree city, would have become a blight. We're not a blight. And I'd like to think that our original charge, which was to look at development sites and speak for the protection of the environment associated with those development sites, that charge of ours was a great service to the town. And I think we did our very best to protect desirable trees as sites were being developed in areas that were largely natural space. I won't call it open space, but natural space. Where we've occasionally been disappointed is because our recommendations weren't always followed. I think anything that the town board can do to include us in a checklist sort of process such that developers have to take into account the concerns of the Conservation Board and argue to the decision-making board that they have, in fact, taken into account the concerns of the Conservation Board. I think that'll go a long way towards seeing that our recommendations carry some weight. When we have an EPOD, a woodland EPOD, then the role of the Conservation Board is pretty well spelled out in the EPOD. We do get a pretty strong voice in what happens in the development of that EPOD. Nonetheless, we're still not a check mark on the process to get final approval. So I think Debbie mentioned that the town board is at least considering, can we become a check mark on that process?
And Jim, I think you will see that.
Yeah.
This board will see that. The Conservation Board will have a check off on that, on those projects that where it's deemed necessary, and your part, and you know, obviously that it's something that you look at the projects you need to look at.
So Tree City is a laudable goal, but if the Tree City folks impose stringent requirements on us with respect to having a tree ordinance, I question whether that's actually necessary in a town like Penfield. And I say that probably comes as a surprise to all of you, but you know, I think we've got a pretty well-managed town here, and I'd like to see us continue to let our elected officials and our Conservation Board and our Planning Board and our Zoning Board make decisions for the town and not be overly influenced by the Arbor Day folks. As laudable as a group they are, I think we can manage our town without outside influence. So that's my own personal feeling about that. We had a great event here on the 23rd, and that was our...
I'm sorry, Jim, but are we going to, I'm a dog with a bone.
Oh,
Are we
that's
going
okay.
to agree to set aside to look at our mission?
Yeah, well,
have an outside discussion?
I have no problem with our having discussions like that. I'm not
Okay.
sure that we can have a full board discussion without it being a public meeting, if you will. I don't know that we can have a working session meeting that isn't a so-called public meeting where we can just, you know, brainstorm and put stuff up. Can you
Yeah, I'd have to look.
help us with that, Debbie?
I'd have to look into that, because I don't know, Catherine, I'm not sure about.
Can't workshops be done in, without participation?
We do work, well,
Well, let's just get back.
can we look
Sure.
into this?
Let's table
And
that.
follow up? Can we do that table?
Why don't we get
follow
an
up?
opinion from the town attorney on that?
Yeah,
Because
okay.
we're-
I think we
we're not
should.
a decision-making
Right.
board, so I would think that we
You
could get
probably can,
together and just
right.
have a workshop
Yep,
without making it a public meeting, but
sure,
I guess we need to know the answer to that.
okay. We'll get back to you on that,
That's it, call it workshop.
right.
That's what it would be.
We'll follow up on that.
It just would allow
Sorry
us to
about
be a
that.
little more free-flowing and free-thinking and just throw
Right.
things up on the wall, and
Yes.
thank you.
Sorry for interrupting,
No,
but I
thank you,
have to, I
Pat.
have to
That's
close the
perfect.
loop for me,
That's good.
otherwise
I
I'm,
appreciate it.
That's good, we'll follow
I
up.
appreciate it. So back to our April 23rd giveaway, and I didn't see anybody show up with a pickup truck.
thank goodness.
I want to thank everybody, except, of course, you, Paul.
Sorry.
Paul went and got sick on us.
He was here in
He came
spirit.
back
I
from
brought it back from
that
Tucson.
beautiful weather, and he came back to the north.
Who's had a cold? That's the first
cold.
cold in 3 years.
But everybody really pitched in, and Catherine, you had things so well organized, and then, of course, the wind came up. And Catherine had all these paper bags so that we could bag everything to hand out to people, and the wind was just raising heck with us. And then
I don't think we lost one bag, though.
Pat and Roseanne showed up and just sat down with her and organized like a assembly line process. So you did a great job with that. And Daniel, you pitched in and helped Jeff here lead folks down to the maple grove and get a grove planted. And
I sent
Bert,
some-
You were there and overseeing everything with your expertise. So we had a great time. I think Marie did come and give a proclamation, which is, by the way, part of what we need to do if we want to be a tree city. And the proclamation that Marie gave, I actually brought for Debbie to read.
So
If
this is
you
a
would, Debbie?
Yep, sure, thank you, Jim. So this is a proclamation to the town of Penfield in celebration of Arbor Day and Earth Day. And I'm going to read this tonight again, because I'm not sure if Catherine got to hear it when she was doing.
I didn't hear
And
it
you
either.
probably, all the board didn't hear this as well, so I want to make sure that you guys, because this is really a labor of all your love that in the day you spent doing this. So whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for planting trees, and whereas this holiday is called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing erosion of topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas oftentimes the trees grow in the same vicinity as flowering plants and milkweed, which provide much-needed habitat for monarch butterflies, critical pollinators that are declining in number. And whereas trees in the town enhance the economic vitality of the business area and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and renewal. So now therefore be resolved, that Marie Cinti, supervisor of the town of Penfield, does hereby proclaim April 23rd as 2022 as a celebration of Arbor Day and Earth Day in the town of Penfield. And she urged all citizens to celebrate and support efforts to protect trees and monarch butterflies. And be it further resolved that we urge all citizens to plant trees and wildlife to promote the well-being of this and the future generations. And this was dated April 23rd, 2022, signed by Marie Cinti and the members of the town board. And Marie did want me to just mention to each and every one of you, thank you very much for all you did for that. Catherine especially, thank you very much for organizing all the efforts. And to Roseanne, Daniel, Pat and Jim and Bert and Jeff, and even to Paul, who's there in spirit. And I don't know if PCTV had some pictures. I took a lot of pictures of Daniel and Jeff helping the Boy Scouts and families plant. I don't know if they got them out. If they don't, maybe we'll have them on tomorrow night for the town board meeting.
I didn't see the pictures, but I saw the video.
You did, good, okay.
didn't see anything.
So I'm sure, I don't know if it's up on the website, maybe, I don't know if it's on the town website, but I know that I thought it was going to be put on. So again, thank you all, and so this is really your proclamation for all you've done, so appreciate it, and thank you.
Cool.
And Jeff, I just want to, that was a wonderful idea to make it a family event in terms of, plant a tree with your children, with your grandchildren, to have this grove. That was, so much enthusiasm I saw from people coming in to do
Yeah,
that.
there was a lot of, it was cool. I'm glad I was over there working with all those folks instead of doing the other
Instead of
stuff.
the assembly
I had a
line.
blast. I had a blast
You did a great job with those,
with everybody.
all of them.
Jeff will be forever known as Mr. Maple Grove.
Yeah.
Now you got to go out and make sure those trees grow.
I'll be watching them. I ride my bike through there all the time.
I just want to share, we had a bunch of people sign in. We didn't get to capture everyone, but between staff, volunteers, and families that came out, there was 80 individual sign-ins. So that included families. There was one group, I think it was a group home type of deal where a bunch of people came. They just signed in as one block. So that's way more than I could have imagined. So I thought it was a huge success, and we got all 25 of the Maple Grove spots planted, which is awesome, and we gave away all remaining 125 seedlings to residents and friends of Penfield. I took the remaining 2 home and planted them in my backyard, so hopefully they'll grow big and strong.
Good.
And then, we planted the 4 big ones, and hopefully we can have another fun, successful spring event next year.
And
I
also,
believe we actually had to turn, 5 to 7 people
Did you?
away that wanted to,
yeah.
Yeah, that wanted to
That
plant.
wanted to plant in the grove.
that came and wanted to plant.
They at least got to take a tree home.
Yeah.
They did take a tree home, and they were at least happy to plant one at home.
And also, I think this is the first event where I've ever seen every single department head in the town of Penfield was represented that day. It was it was a really nice showing of community effort.
Well, and the people that came in and had tables as well, and,
Yes.
put things out.
Right. Penfield Green was there, right.
Yeah, having the Parks Department there and actively helping with everything, that was really good.
Nice, very nice day. Thank you all.
Does anyone know when Lilac Festival is going to be held? Have they set the date?
I think it starts next weekend, or this coming
This coming
weekend.
weekend, I think, for 3 weekends.
Does it begin
so.
this coming weekend?
I believe it's the 6th.
so. Could look it up.
I think it's the 6th, and it's only weekends, isn't it? Or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I believe?
Don't they usually have 2 weekends?
And I think
the
this year they're
week in
going to do
between?
3.
Yeah,
3, weren't they?
yeah.
3 weekends?
Well,
Not even.
Yep,
we
yeah,
oughta-
3 weekends.
I was over there the other day, you guys, you have to go over really soon to see the azaleas, or all the earlier bushes. The lilacs aren't out, but some of the bushes are really at full,
Yeah, if we have viewers who are new to the area, Highland Park has a wonderful lilac festival every year, and there's an incredible variety of lilacs there and other beautiful flowering plants. And usually, there are some people that have goodies to eat as well. Is that going to happen this year?
I think on the weekends, that's the event.
Yeah,
I think on the weekends.
yeah.
Looks like
Anyway,
I see their new
it's worth looking into. And again, if we have any new to the area people, I recommend that you acquaint yourselves with Letchworth State Park, which is a good hour south of Rochester, and worth your visit. Anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up?
Good buffalo draft. I thought that was
Go with that.
a solid B. Yeah.
Are we ready to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
I guess we're done. Bye for now, folks.